All right, Meta, what is your topic?
I am going to talk to you
Oof.
about a game of high adventure, but it's not going to be Conan because that's not the kind of adventure I'm talking about. It's more of a
No,
fantasy.
it's what's it called, right?
It's
Seventh Sea.
yeah, it's Seventh Sea definitely.
Swashbuckling adventure.
It's more of a fantasy, really, kind of the final one that you take about 15 iterations so far. Um,
Well, more than that.
yeah, actually more than that. You're right because of all the spin-offs and whatnot. I'm talking about Final Fantasy 14 and specifically their new expansion, Stormblood.
This is our first MMO topic.
I know it is our first MMO topic, but they finally kind of dropped down the last bit of information that they're really going to be telling us about this game prior to its release, which is on the June of 20th, which is,
Well, the
less than
June
a
of
month time.
20th?
Yes, the June of 20th. I know
The
what I
old
said.
way of saying it.
I know what I
What
said.
number expansion is this? For
This
them
is the
after
second
the relaunch.
This is the second expansion after the relaunch. And it's shaping to be fantastic. The first expansion did a lot to kind of help bring in a new mindset for the game, to kind of start those almost a stepping stone to fading out some of the stuff, the remnants that was still part of a very old mindset for an older format of game in a very modern MMO game world. And Stormblood is continued to push forward in that concept. They are again moving into adding in newer concepts that MMOs take a part of and sort of phasing out a lot of the older stuff as well. Obviously, with an MMO and a new expansion, it comes out with tons of new content, like new classes to play as, or jobs as they're called in the game, new zones to explore, a higher level cap, new items, new rating stuff, new content of all things. So I'm going to talk about, obviously, the thing that matters the most, the new jobs you can play as. Heaven's Word brought us 3 new classes. That was a tank, a healer, and a damage dealer. And they were the Dark Knight for the tank, which was an odd choice in many's eyes, but it's done a decent job at being a tank. It's actually a pretty cool class. They had the Machinist or Machinist, depending on who you talk to, which was a ranged DPS that used guns. Within within Heaven's Word, which was the first expansion they had. And then they had the Astrologian, who was their newest healer, who used a new mechanic where they were pretty buff heavy. They drew cards and they would give you buffs like damage up, damage down, restoring resources, increasing speed, reducing cooldowns, stuff like that.
They like the discipline priests of Final Fantasy 14.
No, actually,
I'm gonna have to use like WoW comparisons.
no, actually, the other class, Scholar, which is more like your discipline priest, where it's about damage reduction and shields and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah. And then White Mage is kind of your pure output, high
Holy
healing.
priest,
Yeah, your holy
basically.
priest, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly it. So, this expansion, they did something different, though. They did not bring in 3 new classes. They brought in 2, and they were of the same type, both damage dealers. And those classes are Red Mage and Samurai. And I will never get away from a topic that doesn't have a samurai in it.
You've had a few.
I've had a few. I feel like I need to fix that, though. So I want to talk about a little bit of these classes. I won't go into tons about them, but I want to start off with a really cool one, Red Mage, because it was not only the first reveal of the class that we got.
Mage.
But Red Mage is just obviously a very cool class. So obviously Red Mage plays off of Black White Magic. For those of you who don't know, Red Mage was kind of like your average Joe. He was good at many things, a master of none, but he'd rather be good at a number of
In
things.
Final Fantasy 1, he's a mage that could use better armor, but also had access to weaker black and white magic.
Yep, he did a mix. He was your he's
They
kind of
usually
your pinch
went
hitter.
up to like level 6 magic, whereas like the true ones could go up to like level 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very fun, interesting class simply because he covers a lot of bases. He's even good, or at least decent in melee if you gear him.
You said
And,
or that they're all damage dealers, so does he not have healing magic?
Well, here's the yes and no on this. We know a lot of information, but we don't know everything that's access to it. The way the Red Mage in this game works, because it's playing based off of more modern MMOs, which generally do the triangle, tanks, healers, and damage dealers. He does kind of a combination, and the way the game is designed is that like white magic, or not even so much white magic, but there's 2 aspects in the game, and they're both kind of like lighter and darker. in regards to just keeping it simplified. Astral and Umbral in regards to that. He can use both styles of magic from what their base areas are. So like white magic can still be damaging, and black magic.
Yeah,
can
there was white magic.
Yeah,
yeah, like Aereo and Holy.
Yep, and in that game, in this game, like that kind of falls into those kind of concepts. Red Mage doesn't, from what we can tell, he isn't a healer. He uses a combination of both melee and ranged attacks. He does have his classic change spell, which came around in later games, where if you cast one spell, he can immediately follow it up with an instant cast, which is really cool. Because that's the first.
I think in FF5 they got like dual magic or something was basically what it was, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Magic or something.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, it's changed over the different iterations, but the concept is still there. He gets to cast a lot of spells, and what he ends up essentially doing is he builds up this meter, which is balanced between dark magic and light magic, white magic and black magic. And
so like kind of like oh my god, the druid, balanced druid almost. Where he had like the sun magic, and then the bar would change into the moon.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, kind of like that, but you're actually building them at the same time because you want to balance them out. You're all about balance with that class, and when those meters get balanced out, you can use moves to engage in melee, and those generally seem to, from what we know of, they seem to drain, and they do a lot of damage, and then you can finish off by disengaging and going back into ranged spells.
Okay.
So it's it looks like it's a mechanic that's utilized to either engage in melee to do some very high damaging moves and whatnot, which use up their bar, and then you go back to range, which then refill. So they're a very cool class. They have a lot of cool stuff going for them, and they're very unique to the game for what they are. The other one is Samurai, and
that's all you need to know.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. That's honestly all you need to know. Everybody just go play Samurai. They're the best class right now. No. What did you ask, Ops?
I said they use guns too, right?
Yeah, they use guns. They definitely use guns and
swords that turn into guns.
Yeah, swords that turn into guns. They use explosives.
It's Final Fantasy, right? Yeah.
Explosives. They use airships. They call them military strikes. No, they base them off of the fantasy. They're more like Ronin than they are actually. Think like Edo samurai as opposed to like Sengoku samurai. They're gonna be wearing like cloth armor and whatnot. But apparently they have stated that they will allow more freedom in like what you can wear is for glamour, so you could have your samurai wearing armor, essentially, is what they're getting at. Anyway, what samurai focus on is around styles. What you have is called the 3 styles of the Sen gauge.
Stance dancing.
Not stance dancing. These styles are not stance dancing. You're actually utilizing different.
What you wear.
The fashion. Obviously, they're all courtiers.
Fashion souls.
You would talk your opponents to a death, and then you throw a gill at them because they're filthy peasants.
Do they have gill toss?
No, I don't think they have gill toss, but I kind of wish that they did. We made jokes about that, like where people who are capped on the gill would just use gill toss and throw all their gill to instantly one-shot raid bosses.
Yep.
That'd be amazing. But what they work on is they essentially have a gauge that has to be built up through moves, and that gauge will give you access to other moves that are not part of combos that'll be off the global cooldown. And without trying to get too technical, I would say just look that up. I don't want to really spend the tons of time explaining it, but essentially allows you to do more moves than normal. Yep. But as they use these moves, they're going to be building up what's also called the Sen gauge, and the Sen gauge is just essentially 3 different styles. And when they're built up, they allow you access to EI Jutsu. And the EI Jutsu is based off of how many of those Sens you have built up. So it's kind of a complicated class, and as the director put it, he stated that it's supposed to kind of be, they do want this to be a more complicated class because Samurai does hit pretty hard. They have a lot of high potency or high scaling attacks, and that's really what their focus is going to be on. So you'll have to learn how to kind of weave their own abilities into allowing you to transition into EI Jutsu as fast as possible, because your EI Jutsu moves are your hardest hitting moves in the game. So that's really where they work and focus on, is trying to get these gauges out so that they can transition to EI Jutsu, use them up, and then bring them back as fast as possible so that they can continue to hit very hard.
A question I have, because I know FF14 does different stuff with like how you level your classes and all that, because you basically can do multiple jobs on one character, right?
Yes.
So how's it going to work when the expansion comes out? You switch over to Samurai. How much like actual grinding are you going to have to do? Or do you just have to do the new expansion content and you'll have access to all of his abilities and stuff?
I can switch over once the expansion hits. You'll immediately be able to play the new class. It's not required that you have the expansion to play the class, so you can actually go into it. You just have to have a class that's already level 50. And I really shouldn't call them class because technically, again, from the older game, it's kind of a thing that's left behind. But it's really called a job because there are certain classes in the game that lead into a job, but they're trying to transition away from that. Every new one since Heavenward has been just jobs. There's no longer classes that build into a job. It's kind of weird to explain, but it's an old thing from an old game that kind of needs to die, and that's what they're trying to do.
Well, like they sort of prestige class into like a more advanced version, right?
Yeah, and
the other ones.
Yeah,
whereas these are just already basic prestige classes. Sort of.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty much what it is, and I mean, the prestiging into them really doesn't do you anything except give you a stat boost, which isn't huge. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but it's not huge, and I mean, that could just be a part of the class itself, so.
Right.
But.
So you'll only have to grind through basically the new content to have access to everything you need on that job, right?
No, I'll still have to level up that job separately from the other ones. I will actually be doing a little bit of grinding through some stuff to get it up to the new content to play it through that.
Okay, so it'll start at like level 1, basically.
Yeah, however, if you're not playing one of the new classes or one of the new jobs, you will be able to make use of a new feature that they've brought in, and it's essentially level skipping. It will be a level jump. They've brought in 2 different types.
Oh, so boosting, gotcha.
Yep, they'll be doing boosting both for your jobs, as well as you'll actually be able to skip the story. For those of you who aren't aware, Final Fantasy XIV has an immensely long, wonderful, but long story, and being locked behind it, a little bit aggravating because you can actually go through the main scenario story of the original game, A Realm Reborn, vanilla. You'll go through that, and you will actually be by the time you're finally complete through that main scenario and all the patches that are for it before going to Heavensward, you'll actually be in levels that were meant for Heavensward. So you'll be like level 54, and 54 is 4 levels into what that Heavensward content was supposed to allow you to get into. And by the time you're done with all the Heavensward content, you'd be way into Stormblood content levels without actually being or doing the Stormblood storyline. So they're trying to introduce this to help you skip along that stuff. It'll unlock a number of things. Certain things will be done for you and chosen for you so that you can get right into the new storyline content and catch up with your friends or family that you're playing with the game. And then obviously for just doing it with a new job, you can just jump right up to level 60, except for Red Major Samurai, which you will have to level manually. But they start at level 50, so
do you have to like do old quests that you've already done or something to level your other jobs? How does it like balance that out? Like XP?
You have what's called essentially oh god, I obviously can't remember it, but it's essentially a kind of a veteran EXP bonus. Is that if you have a class that's higher level than the class that you're playing as, it gets a bonus to EXP. You can run through daily dungeon, which gives you a huge bonus to your HP that scales with your level, so it's always giving you a giant chunk. In fact, if you run that dungeon, you're almost guaranteed to level up once with that bonus, so you're almost guaranteed to level a day if you just do that.
Okay.
And then there's other content like Palace of the Dead, which doesn't even care about your actual job / class level, because it's kind of like it's almost like a rogue dungeon, if you will, where you start at level 1, you keep leveling up, and if you die, you just have to start all over. But every certain number of floors you progress, it gives you actual EXP to your main class and a good chunk of it, so it'll continue to level that stuff up in the background. You can do fates, you can do guild leaves, there's a lot of things you can do. And then there's bonuses that you can get as well that give you enhancements, like items that increase your EXP gain. If you're part of a free company, you'll get EXP bonuses that will stack upon one another and the like. So there are a lot of ways to level up to catch up if you're doing it the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
As for new zones, we get, and again, this kind of more pertains to the lore, so it really won't pertain to it, but you do get a lot of new zones. They will be leading us into an area called Alamigo, which is kind of where the home of the monks are in the game, and it's very warlike. And then they're also going to be taking us to a new continent called Athard, which is essentially not Asia. And that's where we'll be able to play as samurai. That's where we're going to see a lot of Asian aesthetics. We're going to see a lot of Chinese and Japanese influence on things, et cetera, et cetera. So that'd be very cool to go over there as well. Beyond that, there will be new raids. We'll be focusing on facing Omega Weapon, which will be the new raid. So he'll be coming along for a ride. And if you are a lover of Final Fantasy Tactics, that will be the other raid that's coming along. They brought along the writer and one of the developers for the Final Fantasy Tactics as well, and some of the people that worked on it, and they're bringing them on board to help build that raid and the story for it, because we will be going to Avalis, or Ivalice, depending on how you want to call it.
Everyone must stand in a square in
Yes.
moving grid form.
Yes, and then you must all have CTVs, and you must all use old school
We're going to go
mechanics.
fight Ramza, right?
Yes, we're going to go fight Ramza. So that's actually really cool. I'm really looking for that because I love Final Fantasy Tactics. None of the other things that came after it, just the original one. Yeah, and then obviously there's all the other stuff. You get more levels, you get more story content, there's new gear, items, etc. But I'm very excited for this game because they are doing a lot of changes that put it in line with more modern MMOs, and it's about damn time. And I'm loving every second and bit of the information that's coming out, and I can't wait to see more.
Yep, soon you'll fall back into the spiral of another game. Now that you've platinumed the
Platinum Neo. Yeah, I did platinum that. Well, I still have to platinum the DLC, so we'll
well, you know. You've got like a few
Just
weeks,
a weekend
right?
or two.
Yeah. Well, I got to go through a Way of Demon on that, but that's a topic for another day, so